Today's video is sponsored by Hunter. More on this later. Hello everyone, in this video we're going to solve the challenge Vuln Forum. We're going to start from zero, abuse information disclosure, perform DNS enumeration, subdomain takeover, read some source code and bypass a regular expression. Finally, we're going to get domain access to the forum and read confidential and secret messages. It's going to be a very fun video. I hope you're going to enjoy it. Let's get started. Between my full-time day job and my certification preparation, I barely have free time to play CTFs. And since you enjoy watching me solve those challenges, I thought I'd reserve a Saturday afternoon to try to solve this challenge and share it with you. So make sure to support my channel by hitting that subscribe button, liking the video, and sharing it with your hacking buddies. So the challenge is on the ctfchallenge.com. I've already covered this website. It's really awesome. It offers a lot of challenges and allows you to perform various hacking techniques and hone your hacking skills. Now, first of all, we're going to log into the platform and let's go straight to the challenge and hit Begin Challenge. Alright, as you can see, we land on a home page, which is typical of a forum website. We have public forums, in this case, one public notice with one post and one comment from one user named Toby. Alright, when we click on it, actually let me just start capturing my requests on Burp using Foxy Proxy. If you don't know how to configure that, I've already covered that in a previous video in the OWASP Top 10 training playlist. So if you're barely new to web hacking, I strongly encourage you to first start with that playlist. It covers the most famous web vulnerabilities with hands-on training. So when we go to the notice, we find that there is a typical thread and it says that it's closed group and new registration is not available. We can't create or comment on this thread, and we have user Toby who has two posts and he has somewhat random ID as part of the URL. Let's go back to the home directory. If we click on comment, we'll end on the same thread. And the second and third sections are inaccessible because we don't have the right privileges. We do see a login feature here. So once we hit that button, we land on a login page. So if I try something ridiculous, I get invalid username and password in a pop-up. So I guess there is a JavaScript behind which displays this. So let's see what JavaScript code we have behind the scenes. It's always a good idea to read the code whenever you have the chance to, because code never lies. So if there is a vulnerability, you'll find it there. All right, so once we select the right GET request to the root directory, we don't see any scripts here apart from the jQuery and Bootstrap. But if we go to /login, we do see a JavaScript bit of code which listens for a click on the element which has the class login button and then sends a request to /login. It's a post request containing the data, username, password, and method. And if there is an error, we print the display message. So once we send a post request using the credentials that I've used, you do see that we have an invalid username and password in the display message attribute. So that's what gets printed in an alert. But we notice there is a third parameter here called method, and it's equal to local. So I'm not sure what this is. So let's send it to the repeater and start playing with it. We can try something like remote, because since this is local, the opposite is remote. And it says that method remote is invalid. That's because I made a typo. So if I send remote, we do get a flag here. So let's note this in Notion. If you've seen my previous video, you know that I enjoy taking my notes on Notion. If you don't, then choose your personal favorite note-taking tool. Otherwise, you could just use Notion. I've done a video about it, which you should see pop up in the top right corner of the video. And here it says that the server something random.auth.vulnforum.co.uk/auth responded with a 404. Well, that's interesting because we've just discovered a new subdomain. So because it says here http:// it means that the subdomain is running a web server. Let's try to go to this page and let me just force it to use HTTP, and we get a weird page saying invalid domain. So let's send it to the repeater and try to play with it. Maybe there is a problem with this subdomain, so we might try something like host header injection. So let's remove this part and just use the www. Now we get a redirection to /logging. It doesn't make sense to me, but let's just go with the flow and fetch /logging because it's been redirected to. And now we get a logging page, which is kind of the same as the previous one, but someone with a keen eye will notice that the parameters are different. So first of all, we have the title, which is vulnauth authorization provider, and this hints that this logging is part of something like OAuth authentication. And that explains why we have triggered an error using the method remote. I guess the forum supports two main authentication methods. The first one is the local one, which talks directly to a local database, while the second one is remote and goes through an authorization provider. And here you can see that the name is email and not username as in the previous request. So this is a different logging screen that might support the remote authentication. I can cut the chase and tell you directly what I've tried because I've wasted some hours trying to brute force the login and the password, but it failed. Let's enumerate this subdomain. And one way to do that is to perform DNS enumeration. So I am in a Kali Linux instance that's running on Docker. And if I do host, the name of the subdomain, it will give me the IP address related to this subdomain. So when I hit enter, I see that the subdomain is an alias for vulnauth.co.uk. And this one resolves to this address. If I try dig, of course I don't have it, so I need to install it. If I could find the right package, I think the right package is DNSUtils. So if I do dig, and I'm only interested in short answers, I get the same result. So let me remove that to give you more details. So as you can see in this line, we have a CNAME that's configured to map this subdomain to vulnauth.co.uk. Does this ring a bell? Of course, it's a typical scenario for subdomain takeover. So in this case, the vuln forum sysadmin had a canonical name pointing to vulnauth.co.uk, but this website does not have this subdomain registered anymore, and this will be clear in a moment. So if we go to vulnauth.co.uk, you can see that we land on a user authentication service. And it says here that it handles user logins, so you don't need to store any passwords on your system. And the way it works is that you just have to set up a canonical name record to vulnauth.co.uk. And by the way, we have another flag. So let's record this. And now, what do you think we should put in the auth domain field to be able to take over the subdomain? Well, we need to put the name of the subdomain, in this case, this value. And then we're going to use an email address that we want. So let's say the hackerish@vulnforum.co.uk. And let's choose a password. Create the account. It says that the account already exists. All right, so now it says we have registered this subdomain in vulnauth.co.uk authorization platform. So now we can go straight to that web page. And now we can see that we're prompted with a login screen. So what we can do here is use hackerish@vulnforum.co.uk with the password that we've created. And we land on a configuration page, which allows us to either create new users for remote authentication or edit existing users. So let's try to create a new user. Let's name it dummy. with a remote UUID of maybe 1234 and the password 123. All right, now we see that we have this existing user dummy, and it automatically fetches the UUID, and we can edit the password. But what if I, instead of using my own remote UUID, let's try to use Toby's UUID. If I go to home, I see that there is a random string here which resembles to a UUID. So if I choose to target this UUID, maybe I could update Toby user. So I'm not prompted with any error. And if I go to my requests in Burp, I see that there is a post request that's trying to edit user ID, with this UUID, and sets the password to password 123. So now let's try to log in with this password in the first login page. See if we can log in as Toby. So Toby password 123, and it says invalid username or password. Let's try dummy because that's the username that we've entered. Same. If I inspect the requests on Burp, as you can see, we have method equals local, and we are not interested in that. We are interested in remote authentication. So let's send this to the repeater and change this to remote, and maybe the username to Toby. If we send this, we get different error message, could not find a match for the username or password. Now, if we use dummy in our username value, we get login successful. Okay, and we get a new token as part of the cookie. So we are authenticated as dummy, but we're not sure if we have overwritten the UUID for Toby. So let's grab this token and try to use it on our subsequent requests. So I'm going to copy this and put it right here, remove this part, and let's send this cookie in all our subsequent requests. To do that, I'm going to choose proxy options and then add a new entry. And from here, I'm going to choose a request header and target the cookie header with anything that comes after it using a regular expression match. That's what I am doing here with .star, which means any character repeated multiple times. And then I'm going to replace it with my cookie, the cookie of the user Toby, or dummy in our case. So what do you think would happen if I refresh the page? So let's do that. We see nothing, and I think I made a typo here. So as you can see, token equals, so I need to remove this part and only put the value of the token. That happens all the time when hacking, so you can't imagine the number of ways we screw this up, so just bear with me. So now I'm going to copy this and reconfigure the value for my cookie. And now if I refresh the page, as you can see, I have a new flag, but at the same time, I'm logged in as Toby. Even though I've used dummy as my username, because I've chosen the UUID of Toby, the forum just thinks that I'm Toby. So let's copy this flag and store it in our notes. So now we have access to the user forums. So if I click on that, I see an interesting entry called change password, and that's last commented by John, who is a new user apparently. So if I click on that, I see that Toby has sent a comment. I've added a feature to allow you to change your password in the settings section. Check it out. And here John, who is an admin apparently, responds with, sounds like a good idea, thanks buddy. All right, and notice that we have the possibility to send a comment here. So let's try the same technique as we've done with Toby and try to change John's password. So that's our request that we sent with the user dummy. So maybe I can name it dummy2, and then let's use John's UUID. It seems that it worked. Now let's try dummy2. we have an interesting error message. It seems that admins cannot log in remotely. Admins must log on locally. Okay, so if we do local and send it, we get invalid username and password because those are different databases. So we need to somehow change John's password stored locally, not on the remote authorization server. Now, if we follow the same instructions sent by Toby, we can go to the profile button and then click on my settings. And as you can see, I have the possibility to change the password for the user Toby. So if I choose the same password, 123, and change password, you can see that we have a pop-up saying that a password has been changed. Okay, so let's see what we have in burp. So apparently it's a GET request, which is odd because it changes the password of the user. So why do we have a GET request here? It should be a POST request, right? And as you can see, we have the new password and a hash value, which is nothing but Toby's UUID. So if you go to Toby, you see that it starts with 1AC and ends with 7F. 1AC, 7F5. So what happens if we change this with John's UUID? Let's send this to the repeater and just go back and grab John's UUID here and paste it right here. So if we send this, we get invalid security hash entered. That's interesting because it seems that the application somehow knows that the authenticated user is not the one that has the hash that we've targeted. And this user information comes from the token cookie. So if we mess with this and send, we have an error saying that we are not logged in. So clearly there is some kind of verification that's going behind the scenes. But since we have a GET request without any anti-CSRF token, this is a classic example of a CSRF vulnerability. If you don't know what a CSRF is, make sure to check out the OWASP Top 10. But for now, let's try to abuse this vulnerability. The idea would be to send a link to John, who is the administrator, that when the page opens, this request gets executed, and because he will be using his own token, the request will be honored. So as you can see, if I use Toby's UUID in my request, because I'm logged in as Toby, the password gets changed. So we want John to send this request on our behalf. But how can we do that? This is where we need to abuse CSRF. And if we go to the thread, we can see that we can send a comment here. So let's try to see if we can send an image. Apparently it's properly encoded, so we don't have a cross-site scripting, for example. If we refresh the page, we see that there is a new message from John saying that I've seen this message, okay, but I'm too busy to sort it out right now. I'll come back later. So this means that whenever we send a comment, John visits the page to see what's happening. If we could inject some JavaScript code that points to our malicious request, we would push John to change his password without knowing. So let's inspect the pages of that thread, and if we scroll down, we see that there is a comment here. Just above the form regarding the comment feature, we have a BB code plugin which has been developed and pushed to GitHub. So if we grab this and paste it here, we can see that the author is Adam, who is the creator of the challenge. And what this plugin does is it turns a string which contains BB code into HTML. So for example, we instantiate a new BB code class, and then we define a comment string like this with an anchor tag, an image, bold character, script, and a italic font, and then it would return the HTML representation. So that's a great lead for us to try, because we might just be able to bypass the output encoding that we've encountered here. We need to somehow bypass this limitation to be able to inject an image tag and get it evaluated client side. Now, as you can see, there is another configuration file, and here we have the allow tags. So for example, we can define that anchor tags, image tags, strong tags, scripts are all allowed, but we don't know for sure what's configured on the forum website. So what happens if we try to fetch that configuration page? We might just get access to the current configuration file. So let's send this page to the repeater, and since we are on the www subdomain, we can fetch this page and hopefully we might get the configuration content. And sure enough, we get a result, and as you can see, there is a minor difference between this configuration file and the one that we have on GitHub. It seems that the only allowed tag is the image tag, which is enough for us because all we want is an image that points to our malicious URL. So if we try this image tag and then we want to put our malicious URL that contains the password and the John's hash and put it right here. So we want it to fetch this page, and then we want to close the BB code with image tag. Okay, so hopefully we would see an image rendering, but it's not the case. All right, clearly there is something that's going on behind the scenes. So since we have access to the source code, as I said before, the code never lies. So let's go to bbcode.php and try to understand how it works. If you want to develop your skills in code review and find security vulnerabilities while getting paid, then I think Hunter is the platform for you. It's an emerging bug bounty platform which specializes in open source. What I like about it is you can register CVEs through Hunter. So as you can see here, 90% of users got their first CVE, and it's a really good way to learn code review, practice it, and get paid along the way. You can even get paid when you fix an issue. So if we go to the activity, if we take this cross-site scripting, you can see that it has been rewarded. The fix bounty is now up for grabs. So if you want to train yourself how to understand a vulnerability and fix it, if you're a developer who wants to get stronger at secure coding, then this is a great opportunity because you don't have to find the bugs yourself. You just have to take a bug and then fix it and commit your code. And here you can see that the fix was as simple as adding ng non-bindable attribute to the text area element. Did I forget to mention that the scope is unlimited? Well, yes. You can choose whatever GitHub repository. Let's see, for example, a TensorFlow. It was reported by Ajmal about a remote code execution using a malicious YAML file. So if you want to try avoiding duplicates and want to show off your work through CVEs, and if you enjoy reading code, then this is the right bug bounty platform for you. So the code defines a construct function that fetches the bbcode.conf configuration file and iterates through all the lines. And when it finds a hashtag allowed tags, it sets the start tag into true. When it is set to true, it verifies if the start of the line is double slashes. If it is different, then it populates the allowed tags with lowercase representation of whatever tag name we have. So after the constructor is run, we have a list of allowed tags. And so in the run function, we take that text and then we try to remove any XSS attacks from that text. And then it performs various substitutions based on the content of the tag. In this case, our whitelisted tag is image. So what we do here is take this regular expression, evaluate it, and then turn it into this HTML representation with the content in the source being the first group, which is between those two parentheses. So let's take this regular expression and try to see how it is evaluated. There's a cool website called regex 101. And here I can paste my regular expression. And you do see explanation of each one of those. And from what we understood with this regular expression, we need to start with a bracket and then image. Then we need HTTP or HTTPS, colon, whack, whack, and then wherever domain we have. And we need to close the image tag. Now, notice that when I do that, I don't get any hits. And that's because I need to end my request with either JPEG, JPEG, GIF, or PNG. So the developer is expecting the image tag to contain a value that points to an image, right? So if I do .jpeg, you can see that straight away we have a hit. We have the match and then the group. So our malicious URL would be, in this case, let's copy it from here, would be this one, but we need to start with HTTP, right? So we need to take the host value and put it right here, right? And then we need to end with either PNG, GIF, JPEG, or JPG. To do that, we will mess up with our request, right? So if I do .jpeg, I still have the match, but it won't be properly evaluated server-side, and we won't have the right value of the hash. The hash value would be this plus the .jpeg. We don't want this. So we can take advantage of how HTTP requests are constructed and specifically get parameters. So here we have the first parameter, password equals password123, and hash equals the value of our hash, and we can add a dummy parameter called, for example, x, and then we will assign it .jpeg as a value. So this would be a valid request, and we would still be able to change the password of this hash value. Let's copy this and paste it in our comment. And now we can see that indeed we were able to inject an image. It's broken because the link does not point to an image, but if John visits the page, it will automatically trigger a GET request. So if I refresh the page, let me communicate with Burp and refresh the page, you can see that there is an automatic request sent with our target hash, but because we are logged in as Toby, we get the same error message, invalid security hash entered. But John has now visited the page, and now if we try with the user John, with the local method, with our new password, and send this, we have successfully logged in, meaning that we've gained access to the forum as an administrator. So let's just go back to our match and replace rule and remove it. And now if we go back to the home directory and log out, then log back in, this time using John as password 123 that we've set, we get login successful. And we access the admin forums articles, and here we find a confidential codes that contains the final flag. Let's populate the flags and validate the challenge. Our first flag is 1, the second one, third one, and the last one. Great! I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comments what was your approach to solve this challenge and what are the rabbit holes that you've encountered. I know that because I've been here maybe 3 hours trying to solve the challenge and I ran through several rabbit holes. So let me know yours in the comment below and see you in the next video. If you found this content helpful, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to this channel so that you get updates whenever I publish a new video on ethical hacking and bug bounty hunting. If you're new to hacking and want to learn the basics, check out the free OWASP Top 10 theory and hands-on training on thehackerish.com and apply your knowledge on the lab which supports it. If you enjoy learning with videos, I invite you to watch the OWASP Top 10 YouTube playlist. However, I encourage you to first try to solve the lab exercises so that you don't spoil them. Don't forget that there are supporting blog posts for most of the videos you watch on this YouTube channel. I also encourage you to subscribe to the Friday newsletter on thehackerish.com to gain some new hacking knowledge at the end of the week. If you enjoy listening while doing other things at the same time, check out the Hack for Fun and Profit podcast, link in the description box. Until next time, stay curious, keep learning, and go find some bugs.